I think we live in a society now where I think men and women are like, I don't need you, man, or I don't need you, girl. I don't need you. I think that's the vibe that's going on. It's like, I don't need you.
But why?
That's what I'm trying to figure out, right?
Hey, y'all.
What up, y'all?
What's going on?
This is the
Perceived Value Life
the name of this show?
podcast.
Perceived Value Life podcast.
Can mean a lot of different things. It encompasses everything.
What makes us qualified to talk about
I
this?
know, qualified. That's the thing. What makes us qualified to talk about perceived value life is because we live in it. I mean, we live in it. It's life. With marriage, with kids. I think that helps you dive a little deeper.
All that.
Into yourself and your perspective on things, you know? And it's not only your perspective. You have to be able to embrace other people's,
100%.
your perspective, especially since you're my life partner and all.
Definitely.
I have got to consider your perspective. Even the kids, we've got to consider their perspective. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's life.
Definitely.
Life is perception.
Definitely. Well, I mean, that's a great way to start and segue into our conversation today. So,
what are we talking about?
All right. So we're talking about marriage. So, is marriage overrated and outdated? And how important is marriage in today's society? I guess is a good point to talk about. Or is marriage even important anymore? So full disclosure from my point of view, and I'm sure you would agree, we are married, obviously. Well, you don't know that, but we're married.
We're married.
We've been married 7 years. But for full disclosure, I'm not someone, and I say we're not someone who's like, oh, we're married, so everyone should be married. That's the only way to go and blah, blah, blah. So I don't feel like we're super biased. We could be biased to a degree, but I don't think we're super biased. So
no, I don't think we're super biased.
What do you
at
think?
All. What's the question?
So the question is, I mean, we can get deeper into it, but I guess the whole question is marriage overrated or outdated? What is your view? What is your view on marriage, babe? What's your view on marriage before meeting me? Like, what was your view on it?
Yeah.
Because we got married at 36. We were 36 when we got married, so we had plenty of life experience. And
is that considered late?
Is
that considered on time? Is that considered late? Is that considered? I feel like, well, ever since I was a little girl, I've always. Okay, not maybe since I was a little girl, but at a certain point in my life, I would say definitely in my 20s, that I knew I wanted to get married. I mean, there was just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I knew I
was not about to say. Ever since I was a little girl,
since I was 5 years old,
dreaming about getting married when I was playing with my Barbies.
I've always been kind of dreamy about marriage. Like,
okay.
I wanted to have the husband. I wanted to have the house and the kids and the animals. Like, I wanted it all. Okay. I wanted it all. And it became very apparent that I was really wanting to get married and find that someone probably in my late 20s.
Okay.
So the drive was definitely there. And I don't know why that drive is there. Maybe it's because I grew up in a household where my parents were married, and I just thought that was the next thing to do in your life, but I honestly did feel a drive to find a life partner, to find somebody that I can share this life with, to do things with, to have kids with. Like, I wanted that.
I think in my 20s, no, I wasn't really thinking about marriage per se. I was just, in a couple of relationships throughout my 20s, and then, just really focused on what I wanted to do. And but as far as marriage, I think I don't know. I was never against marriage. I mean, I grew up with my mom and my dad in the house, married. But I didn't grow up. I mean, I didn't. When I became an adult, I wasn't thinking about marriage per se. I did think about family at some point. So I think for me, when I got into my latter 20s and early 30s, I started to really think about legacy. So, if I'm being totally honest, for me, it was more of a thought of having a family versus me saying, okay, I want to get married. But I was never against being married. But my mindset about marriage, as far as man to woman, was kind of the same as far as like being in a good relationship, having a partner. So I kind of never really separated the two per se. I always thought that if you have a good partner, marriage is just a byproduct of that. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't, I'm not against being married, but I don't think being married necessarily is the relationship. So I always kind of looked at it like that. But the marriage aspect to me always contained the idea of family. So for me, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that too. Like I didn't necessarily imagine myself being married without kids.
Yeah.
Like it was all of it.
See, that's great. That's a great thing. That's a great thing that you say.
Okay.
Because that's kind of what leads into this conversation here. It's kind of like, okay, is marriage outdated or overrated? Now, we got married kind of late, quote unquote. So, in my opinion.
I think we started the whole process. Well, not the whole process. I would say having kids at the age that I had kids would have been considered late. Sure. I don't know if it's considered late now, though.
I think things are changing. The trends are changing. But even as far as like getting married, late is just subjective.
It's very subjective
to everybody. So,
absolutely.
But I think in regards to...
It can happen at any point in your life.
I would say we didn't get married early.
We didn't get married early.
We could definitely say that. So, for a woman, like when you were in your 20s, was losing some independence, was that ever a thing that came across your mind, would you say?
Yes.
And for women, do you think, even outside of yourself, like just your opinion, do you think other women struggle with the idea of losing independence when it comes to marriage? Is that something you think scares women our age and younger?
I don't know about if scared is the right word, but I think it's of concern.
I mean, women be having side dudes and all that now. It's not just men out here getting it popping in the streets and wanting to be free and all that. The women are like that too. So, what do you think scares women from? What do you think is scaring women from marriage, or not make them not want to get married?
Well, I think it's the level of commitment that is. Well, it's not assumed in a marriage. I mean, it is a huge commitment. I think it's that contract that binds you to one person. So there's nothing wrong with the contract itself that binds you to this one person, but it's the sense of losing a part of yourself.
So say more. So what is it though? Don't be scared. Like what
I'm
is
not
it?
Scared.
No, you're not scared. You're not scared. But I'm saying, well, what do you think? Do you think that women?
I think it. You know what I think it is. You know what I think it is.
Okay.
I think it is. I think it's it is losing a sense of freedom. I don't think it's necessarily losing their identity of who they are. I think us women, at least myself, I know who I am. But it is having other responsibilities besides yourself.
Got you.
You know what I'm saying? And not being able to do what you want to do.
Right.
Necessarily because you have someone else to consider.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you're not always just going to be able to go off the cuff and just go. You know what I'm saying? Go do what you want to do.
Right.
You have somebody else to consider. So it's just like, how much of this person am I going to have to consider?
How much do I like or love this person?
How much of this person am I going to have to consider in order to change where the changes? How do I say this? How much of this person am I going to have to consider to where it's not interfering with my ability to be free?
Facts. You know what? That's a great point because it makes me think about the dynamic of lifestyle. I think lifestyle is, I mean, you can say income too, but I would say more like lifestyle, right? So I think that maybe that's another thing that makes people kind of like, I don't know if marriage is like is just an anchor.
Lifestyle meaning
Like, okay, lifestyle mean like whatever you want to do. You may like to your spending habits, your vacation pattern, where you want to go, the freedom to do whatever it is you want to do. I think some people are like, that's gonna put a real kink in the things that I want to do.
I mean, that's also, so when you're out dating, these are the things that you consider when you're out dating. Does this person like to travel too? I mean, you got to have some things in common. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You can't be somebody who's a complete Scrooge and want to just, not Scrooge. What do you call, someone who doesn't like to spend money?
I think that's Scrooge. Is that Scrooge?
Is that Scrooge?
Scrooge cheap. No, Scrooge had money though.
Yeah, Scrooge had money. Scrooge had he just didn't want to spend it, right? Or was he just mean?
I think Scrooge was cheap too.
Okay, anyway, you don't want somebody on the complete opposite spectrum of you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to have some things in common when it comes to habits, I would say, or the way that you like to spend money, if we're talking about money.
Yeah.
But there also needs to be a level of sacrifice on your part. Right. If you're the spender and you have someone who likes to save, you got to be willing to come and meet that person in the middle. You can't just spend because you're building a future together.
Right.
And it's not just you, it's also them. So you have to meet each other in the middle in order to come to some kind of compromise.
That's a great point again, because when I was looking at that study, it was talking about how there was a huge surge in marriage after World War II. Which was like, going to 40s, 50s, 60s. People were married at higher rates. In our community, in Black community, we were married at high rates. I think 80% or maybe more than that were married. And I think we live in a society now where I think men and women are like, I don't need you, man. Or I don't need you, girl. I don't need you. I think that's the vibe that's going on. It's like, I don't need you.
But why?
That's what I'm trying to figure out, right? So,
is it a level of, I don't want to have anybody to answer to, or is it because I just want to go out here and swing my thing around?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think
I don't want to be tied down to just one thing.
Well, I don't even think it's that so much because people still cheat, right?
That's true.
So that's a whole nother
conversation.
But
another episode.
That's a whole nother episode. But I think it's the fact that I think financially, and again, maybe I get in trouble. I think that women don't need men.
No, we do.
I know you think that, but I'm thinking, I think that's, I'm just talking about a society, not so much personally, but I think society on a larger scale, there's an idea that, I don't need it. Women are like, I don't need this person. And then I think guys are like, guys have, there's so much bad information about marriage, so much negative connotations to go with marriage that I think the guys are like, especially if a guy with a lot of means, it's like, I don't know if I want to get married. Like, I might lose half of my wealth.
If you're looking at it from that perspective, like, I'm going to lose half of everything because if we get a divorce then she's going to get half. I mean, if you're looking at it like that and you're going into it with that kind of a mindset, then that's not a good foundation that you're going into a marriage on. Like, I'm going to lose everything. I think we're all social creatures. I think we all need each other. I don't want to do life alone. I don't think most people want to do life alone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. You
can make the choice to do it all yourself and do it alone, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for the majority, I think we want to do life with somebody. Yeah. We want to enjoy life with somebody. We want to have conversations with somebody. We want to have a consistent person, or maybe not, in the bed every night. You know what I'm saying? That's not going to leave in the morning and I don't know when I'm going to see them again. I like the constant. Yeah. I like the consistency. that a marriage provides. I know that, God willing, you're coming home to me every night.
Yeah.
We get to cuddle next to each other in the bed. We get to enjoy shows together. We get to
Right.
enjoy things that I personally love to do. I get to enjoy it with him. Things that he loves to do, he gets to enjoy it with me.
Right.
So I enjoy having someone to do life with, and I think a majority of people want someone to do life with.
I think you're a marriage advocate.
I am a marriage advocate.
We're not biased on this show.
For
You're biased. You want everybody. No, I
if it works for you,
Yeah,
it works for me. And I mean, the circumstances have to be right. I mean, there are certain principles that I think we both stand on when it comes to marriage. There are certain things that we will tolerate and things that we will not tolerate. So,
for sure. Yeah, everybody has their boundaries.
Everybody has their boundaries and not limitations, but everybody has their boundaries. And I think that's something that we were able to figure out pretty early on in our marriage.
We had the benefit, I feel like, and again, just my opinion, our perspective. I feel like we had the benefit of really becoming adults, having enough time, and we got married. We were 36. So is the question, do people need to just wait longer for marriage? Like we watched the show Married at First Sight. We love that show.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a reality show, but it's cool because
it's so real.
It does show that people want, there is a want for people to want what you said, to have this, to have that person in their life. But I feel like society isn't so catered to that so much anymore. Like career is a huge thing. From what I see, a lot of studies that career is the number one thing people, back in the day, it was like you got married first and then everything else came after that. I don't think that's necessarily the way to go. I do think that, particularly when it comes to women, I think that, women are focused a lot more on their careers for much longer, which I think has made a lot of women, put marriage off. Women aren't focused on getting married when they're 21, 22 anymore, at least from not what I see, They're focused on developing themselves and getting to know themselves and grow. And I think men are kind of doing the same.
Yeah.
Maybe a little differently, but so it was a study from 2000 to 2018 that the national marriage rate has fallen 20%. That's a pretty big amount.
It is.
So with a decline concentrated on states in the South, at the same time, the divorce rate fell by 30% nationally.
Okay.
Right, it's weird, right? Possibly a result of self-selection out of marriage by lower educated or lower income individuals and fewer marriages occurring in the first place. States with the smallest decline in divorce were predominantly located in the Northeast, where we live, Jersey, while states in the South saw divorce rates fall by a third. So when I'm reading this, it's saying, hey, over the past like 20 years, marriage rates have declined 20%, but divorce rates have declined. So it's interesting. People who are, I guess, staying. So I guess what I get from it, people who are getting married are deciding to stay married more, but in that decline of people who are not getting married, it looks as if it's more people are just making a decision, self-selecting, like, yo, it's not for me. So I guess the thing is that what's really changed in society, and over the past 20 years, social media has changed a lot. Huge is a huge change in our society.
Is there a correlation? That's interesting.
That's the great question. Is there really a correlation? Like, everything looks fly online, and people's,
Well, again, perception. Not everything that you see, just because it's pictured as gold, doesn't mean it's real.
Right. That's for sure.
So, I'm not exactly sure why. Well, I can understand why not getting married in the 20s. I can totally understand that. Like, you live in life, you're just living life. Like, you're experimenting. You're testing your boundaries. I don't know, you want to travel, and I can understand why not settling down right then and there is because there's just too much out there. There's just so much to learn, so much to experience.
Right.
You know, I mean, if you have a guy or a girl, you know, who can do these experiences with you, and then maybe later on y'all decide to settle down. But I think the 20s are really meant for exploration. I really think the 20s are meant for exploration. If you choose to settle down, hey, listen, you know,
you in your 20s,
that's great.
You
but
don't have any tolerance for
and you don't have
stuff because you're like, I ain't gotta tolerate this. you don't have any tolerance for. I mean, some people do. Again, it's not an absolute, but a lot of times it's like you're just not.
I ain't got to.
Yeah.
I ain't got to
deal with your problems.
I ain't got to deal with any of it. I'm about to go hang out with my girlfriend right now, or my my guy friend right now, and we're gonna have fun. I think the 20s are. I love my 20s.
So the question is, why get married? If people marry more for kids, and if you don't have any kids, particularly people who don't have any kids, is there really an incentive if you're 35 or 36 and you don't want to have kids?
Right.
Is there an incentive to get married? You know what I'm saying?
That's a good point.
That's a real. Sure, there's a mutual want for two people like us who wanted a family and children to get married. But when you remove that incentive, are people really like, yo, I want to get married and walk down the aisle? So it's just a question, I guess.
I would say that, yeah. Well, for me, my incentive of getting married was to start a family. And family can come in all kinds of different shapes and sizes and whatever. But what I experienced was my mom and my dad, together, raising my sister and I. And that's what a family looked like to me.
Yeah.
So when I think of marriage, I'm thinking a mother, a father, well, a husband and a wife first.
Sure.
And then being a mother and being a father. So for me, marriage did encompass having children.
Okay, yeah.
Not to say that if you choose to be married and not have kids, that there's anything wrong with that. But you posed a good question. Is marriage necessary if you don't want to have kids?
I would say that the benefits you talked about as far as tax purposes, I think that people look at those same things as disadvantages. So once you get divorced, you have to create you have to get your attorneys, which the only people that win in divorce is attorneys because they get paid. Then they got to draft up a divorce decree and split up whatever assets you have or whatever the case is. And it just gets crazy. So I think people are discouraged at that point. But I think as long as you have a why of why you want to do it, I think it's a good idea. But it's just an interesting topic. So,
and I think that both parties have to be willing to. I don't like the word sacrifice.
Sacrifice is real, though. I think that's real.
Sacrifice is real.
I like
sacrifice
that.
is real.
Say that. Don't back up from sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? Like if don't do that. Don't back up. That's
all
real.
Right, fine. You got to sacrifice. You
don't want to scare people with that word.
I mean, it's a scary word. They're like sacrifice. Oh no, I'm not giving up.
Exactly
I ain't giving up shit. I ain't giving up shit.
Exactly. That's why I ain't doing this thing because I don't want to sacrifice nothing.
No, we all need each other. So when you're dealing with other people, you're not just dealing with yourself. You're not just married to yourself. You're married to a whole nother person, who's also going to have to sacrifice some things too. So as long as you both are willing to sacrifice, then I think it could be a very wonderful experience.
Yeah. All right. Well,
perceive value, life, perceive value, life.
Trying to get that other note.
There's gotta be a deeper note.
I was trying to go but
I don't think that thing is going cover all the holes.
All right, y'all, we out.